Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on CBS News 24/7. I'm Lindsay Reiser. We continue to cover the tragedy just outside our nation's capital, the first commercial airline disaster in the U.S. in 16 years. Search and recovery efforts are underway in Washington after that deadly crash between a military aircraft and a regional American Airlines plane last night. While emergency crews are searching the Potomac River to find the crash victims, we are going to show you video now, courtesy of EarthCam, that shows the moment of the collision. The jet was on course, approaching Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport in Virginia, coming from Wichita, Kansas. 60 passengers were believed to be on board the American Airlines flight, along with 4 crew members. 3 soldiers are said to have been on board the military helicopter. Officials say roughly 30 bodies have been recovered so far, including all 3 soldiers. This is radar video from the control tower as crews monitor the situation. It shows the two closing in on one another before the crash. The president spoke to the tragedy earlier today.
The work has now shifted to a recovery mission. Sadly, there are no survivors. This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital and in our nation's history, and a tragedy of terrible proportions. As one nation, we grieve for every precious soul that has been taken from us so suddenly. And we are a country of, really, we are in mourning.
Skyler Henry is at Reagan National Airport, which reopened just a few hours ago. Skyler, where do things stand in the investigation?
Right, Lindsay. Well, the NTSB is leading this investigation. We actually anticipate hearing from them during a press conference later on in this hour. We heard from officials earlier today who have described what it has been like in this recovery mission and their efforts as they have worked through the night, hours, trying to get through the records to see if there were at the time any survivors. Now, as you heard from President Trump in the briefing room there, this is now a recovery mission. They say that because of what the conditions were at that time and where they stand today, it is certainly very difficult for anyone to survive. We know that we know that crews say that they have recovered at least 30 bodies. D.C.'s Mayor Muriel Bowser told our Nicole Skanga earlier today on CBS News 24/7 that they will continue to work until all of those bodies are recovered. They also talked about what it's been like trying to console the families here who were waiting. Remember, this flight was minutes away from landing here at Reagan National Airport, and so there are countless family members here that were supposed to be picking up their loved ones and take them back to their respective homes and locations. And so now this is not only a recovery effort, but also one where this community and this area is trying to wrap their arms around all of these families that are looking for answers, trying to figure out where to go, what to do, how to get any sort of support, because this is something that obviously was not expected, but also they don't know what to do next. Obviously, these bodies are being recovered, but we're also still looking for answers as to how something like this has happened. We know that this is what officials have referred to as a congested airspace, in that there is commercial aircraft that come to this location, military aircraft that come to this location, but there are also several operations training missions that happen throughout the day, and it was relatively normal having lived here in Washington, D.C. And so to see something like this happen, to know the work that air traffic control has to do in order to make sure that this place runs smoothly, there are certainly a lot of questions that members of the Trump administration, that includes Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, as well as Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy and others, say that they want to get to the bottom.
What do we know about the victims?
Well, we're learning a little bit more. We know that there were several high-profile figure skaters that were on board, both U.S. nationals as well as Russian nationals. In fact, President Trump spoke about that during that briefing earlier today. He also said that several other international flyers were on board that regional jet as well. He was yet to release or announce where and what those countries may be. But we are also hearing from several other civic groups. We've heard from union members who say that some of their members were on board this flight as well. Yet to release any official names at this point. But in the hours following this incident, we know that this is something that is impacting not only those in Kansas, but people here in the Washington, D.C. area, and obviously an international perspective as well.
Skyler, we did hear from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth in a video message posted to social media earlier today. Let's listen to that.
Yeah. It was a fairly experienced crew, and that was doing a required annual night evaluation. They did have night vision goggles. The 12th Aviation Battalion, as of now, is granted a 48-hour operational pause on contingency missions as what happened is reviewed.
Now, he was also with the president this afternoon calling this unacceptable, saying that they will get to the bottom of it. And he echoed the president's comments, which we will get into a bit more with Nancy Cortez, that DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, has no place in government. Yeah. Said all employees must be colorblind and merit-based, naming air traffic controllers specifically. There's no evidence at this time suggesting that DEI initiatives played a role. But what else did Secretary Hegseth say?
Well, he emphasized, again, that the service members who were on board that Black Hawk were experienced. This, although it was a training exercise, did not and should not indicate the fact that they were inexperienced flyers at all. In fact, that this was a practice routine mission to nearby Fort Belvoir in Virginia. And this was something that, they do on an annual basis. And though that they were flying at nighttime, they had their nighttime goggles as well, but also said that these were experienced military service members. And so he also wanted to stress that point. But again, the big question is what happened with that communication? Where did it fall off between air traffic control and the Black Hawk? Many are still trying to figure out exactly what might have happened, because remember, as I pointed out, that regional jet was just moments away from landing here at Reagan. And so many questions are out there as to whether there was any sort of mistakes that were made by the service members on board of that Black Hawk, or if there was something that could be done to improve the line of communication between air traffic control and those who are on board both aircraft.
Skyler Henry, thank you.